Hello, gang. Good afternoon. I got Piaget, so I'm going to attempt to share the PowerPoint I created with you. Confession, I really love making PowerPoints. It's like an addiction. Okay, on Piaget and his theory of cognitive development and as it applies to the classroom. Yes. The sensory motor stage is the first stage that Piaget believed in, and he thought it lasted from about 0 to 2 years old. And he particularly highlighted the assimilation and accommodation as primary learning processes in this stage. Of course, assimilation and accommodation to schemas like continue throughout your life, right? You're always getting new knowledge, but they're particularly important in the sensory motor stage because you're basically starting with a blank slate. The outcomes of the sensory motor stage should include object permanence, the ability to mentally reconstruct objects, and a knowledge that you are an individual and can affect the world around you. And ways to kind of support the sensory motor stage of development in education are to use real objects in play activities. They don't have super abstract imaginations and can't really, visualize and pretend as much as older children. You want to connect their play to the 5 senses, let them feel different objects. Sensory activities are really fun. I have a 10-month-old sister who got some foam blocks for Christmas, and she's 10 months old, so she doesn't like build with them right now, but she puts them directly in her mouth. And she also has taken a great liking to knocking down towers that my other siblings build. Like they'll build the tallest tower and then just let her go at it, and she'll just. It's really cute, but that's part of that sensory motor stage. She doesn't really have the cognitive ability or desire to construct objects from the blocks yet. She just wants to feel them and throw them around. Another thing you can do for children in the sensory motor stage to promote development is implement routines for the very youngest children, and kind of describe what's happening and what's going to happen. This can be really helpful for developing communication with them. It can help them to know what to expect and that there are normal things that you'll go through. And let's move on. The pre-operational stage, right? Pre-operational stage happens about ages 2 to 7, Piaget estimated. He did acknowledge that these things could happen in other ages, but this is the general guide of when it happens for most people. In the pre-operational stage, children are capable of more complex symbolism. They engage in more pretend play. They're very egocentric. They kind of have this idea that the world revolves around them and that everyone thinks the same way they do. They don't understand differing opinions. They don't understand like why a kid might get upset if they just grab a toy from them. They have they don't have the ability to decenter, conserve, and understand that objects can be organized into a logical order and to carry out inclusion tasks. None of that like higher upper operational stuff. They're not quite there, and they don't understand reverse transformation. So like something that was in a certain condition originally, they don't understand that after it's changed, it can go back to that. And ways to support pre-operational development are to allow them to actively interact with tangible objects. Let them interact with books, people, games, and objects of all kinds. Let them feel involved and be exposed to a variety of things to build up all those schemas, if you will. Ask questions while they're engaged, and allow them to come up with their own ideas about problems. And point out new things that are learned or that occur, point out new things, and encourage them to ask plenty of questions about both school topics and just questions they have about the world in general. After that, wait, we skipped a stage. Yes, the concrete operational stage. At about the ages of 7 to 11, the children start developing more logical thought. They're better at inductive logic than they are at deductive logic, but they do begin to understand reversibility. They have the concept of conservation, so like the example where liquid poured into a taller glass is still the same amount of liquid. You see a decline of egocentrism, sociocentrism appears. Children they're not like as egocentric as the pre-operational stage, but they can't completely understand most of the time why someone feels a certain way, but they are able to acknowledge that people have different perspectives on things and people do disagree on things and think differently. And they develop the ability to focus on many parts of a problem. And some things you can do to support concrete operational development is to create timelines, 3D models, science experiments, and other ways that you can think of to manipulate abstract concepts, to make those abstract concepts into tangible, concrete concepts for them to understand. Use of brain teasers is advised, and riddles to foster analytical thinking. Plus, most kids really like brain teasers and riddles. Maybe not most kids, a lot of kids do. It's a fun way to get them thinking beyond that. Very like, they have to think outside of the box, teach them to expand their minds and also ask lots of open-ended questions, go beyond the yes or no, or like questions that just have one correct answer, because children will often surprise you with how much they can extract from a smaller amount of information. And then, of course, we finally have the formal operational stage, which lasts from ages 12 into adulthood. And honestly, a lot of people don't ever fully master the formal operational stage. I think also for a lot of people, it can be an ongoing process. So in the formal operational stage, kids are much more sophisticated and advanced in their thinking. Deductive reasoning and systematic planning emerge, and they think more abstractly of ideas. Piaget, in studying this formal operational stage, Piaget asked children where they would have a third eye, if they had a third eye. And all the younger children in the concrete operational, or especially the pre-operational, mostly said like in the middle of their foreheads. But as you got older and into this formal operational stage, children thought out about it a little more, such as like you could have a third eye in the middle of your palms, you could look around walls without getting too much attention, or this or that. They thought more abstractly about where exactly they could put this third eye. Excuse me. Some things that you can do to support the formal operational development are to offer step-by-step explanations of concepts and to guide thinking, especially really abstract or really detailed ideas. You can kind of guide them into that step-by-step. Explore hypothetical situations, especially ones that connect to either past or present events or current events, relevant topics that the kids or teenagers really are interested in and want to explore, and solutions they can think of to problems that the whole world deals with. And also, you should broaden concepts wherever possible. So like ideas about the Civil War could lead to a discussion about like what are other things that divide our country in more modern times, and kind of just lead the students into making those connections. So all the teaching suggestions that I have today came from Helpline.com, which has a lot of good resources about Piaget's theories of development. And I hope that this was, first of all, not a terrible presentation, and secondly, that you learned something, because I certainly did. Thank you so much.